Um, Hello, everybody. I would start by welcoming everybody to this webinar today. My name is Anuja Tilak, and I'm an assistant psychologist at Atham. As you know that we are going to be talking about hurt today. We're going to be talking about the title, as you've read, goes by how do we protect ourselves from hurt. While the title might be suggesting that we will be talking about the coping strategies, there are a lot of different aspects that we'll be diving into today. It's a very intriguing emotion, this hurt, and there's a lot to uncover in today's webinar, and I'm very excited for this. But before we go ahead, I would like to introduce Atha, myself, as well as Asira ma'am. Starting with Atha was established in 2016 by Ms. Asira Chirmule. We are a space that provides psychotherapy services. We provide training for psychology students as well as mental health professionals. We're also a space that has been catering to awareness programs where our mission is to educate populations and make them psychologically literate about things that they face on a day-to-day basis. So that's about Atha. One more key aspect that distinguishes Atha and something that we've been cultivating for a very long time is our wing of Indian psychology. We are one of the pioneering fields, pioneering ones in the field of Indian psychology, where we are trying to combine modern psychotherapy along with the wisdom from our Eastern psychology. Um, that's about Atha. Our aim is to provide the human mind a space to think as well as seek ethically practice psychotherapy services. A little about Asira ma'am before we go ahead. As you know, she's the director of Atha. She's the founder of Atha. Asira ma'am has completed a master's in clinical psychology from SNDT University. She has been practicing in the field for over 6.5 years now, and she practices the approach of CBT, REBT, ACT, and she's been extensively trained in all of these approaches. Not only that, she's also a faculty at KC College, Vivekanand College, as well as Xavier's College. Um, and now about me. My name is Anuja Tilak. As you read the title, I'm an assistant psychologist at Atha. I've been practicing in the field for 2 years now. I've completed my master's in clinical psychology as well as trained in REBT. So, without any further ado, let's just dive right into the webinar. One thing that I would really, really appreciate and love is for you to give me inputs as and on we are speaking, so that it's also a very interactive session where I'm also hearing what you have to say about hurt. So, let's dive right into it. Today, we're going to be talking about hurt. Now, I mentioned that we'll be talking about a lot of different aspects. Now, what are these aspects? Let me give you like an overview before we dive into it. We will be talking about what this emotion of hurt actually is about, how we often choose to cope with it, maybe healthy, maybe unhealthily. We'll be discovering what these unhealthy mechanisms look like, what um, a few set of healthy mechanisms look like, as well as we'll also be focusing on where exactly does this feeling of hurt come from. Right, I have a few viewers mentioning, saying good evening. Say, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining in on a weekday. I'm sure that you might have wrapped up your work or paused your work. It means a lot. Thank you so much. So let's go ahead. Before we begin, I want to emphasize on one point. This webinar is not a replacement for therapy. It is just a seminar where we are going to be diving deeper into understanding hurt, and just understanding the nature of hurt. If you are somebody who is going through severe mental health concerns, we would definitely recommend you to seek professional mental health services to manage the distress. Now let's go to hurt now. um, Firstly, are we having this webinar in order to change hurt? Then I would say no. I would start by saying that it's normal. and it's a part and parcel of the existence of being humans, that these negative emotions or hurt specifically exist in our lives. It's one of the things that the makes us human, and emotions in the first place exist because they are of some importance to us. Now you'll ask me, why exactly are emotions, why do we have emotions, why have negative emotions? Particularly because they cause us so much pain, right? So, firstly, emotions exist in the first place because they alert us to something going on in the environment which is wrong and probably needs your attention, right? And if so, imagine a scenario. Now, we have emotions because we've survived jungles and forests and all of these things, right? Let's go back to that time and imagine that you're right in the middle of a forest and you hear a wild animal's roar, right? And of course, you'll feel the fear, right? The emotion of fear. In this case, if you did not feel the fear, would you have gone ahead and done something to save yourself? Maybe, seek shelter or grab a tool or something or a weapon to protect yourself from danger? No, right? If you had not felt the emotion of fear, you would be standing right there, not noticing anything different in the environment, and potentially not feeling motivated enough to do something about it. Now, that's exactly why negative emotions exist in our lives. Negative emotions help us in some way or the other. And that's exactly the story with hurt as well. Now, hurt is natural, human. We've already established that. And even though it is incredibly painful at times to go through, I would still say that it is a very important emotion that we have in our lives. Um, Diving next into why do I think that hurt is important? Now, think of hurt as the clouds, right? Before a sunny day. These are the clouds that are dark, surrounded, and sorry, मी कोणीतरी आहे मला I did not understand that, Manisha ma'am. Could you reframe that so that I'm understanding what you're trying to say? But yeah, hurt. I was talking about it them being clouds, right? Dark clouds, right? Moving around on your head. If you did not have those clouds, do you think you would have enjoyed the sunshine, which is happiness and content, as much? I don't think so. um Now, what is this emotion of hurt? If in the comments, please feel free to make use of the comments, and let me know, what do you understand hurt to be? What do you think this emotion of hurt is? You can keep adding to the comment section, and I'll keep elaborating as in on. I'm hearing your inputs exactly because of ego sometimes. Yes, very true. um what else? What do you think is this emotion of hurt? Now, hurt has a lot of synonyms. Sometimes you also describe it to be upset and feeling mad, um, when something doesn't go as you expected and you feel not great about it. Great, exactly. It's about expectations being unmet. Very rightly pointed out. Thank you. So, this emotion of hurt also has a synonym called upset. Now it has another cousin which is called as anger. Now, emotions of hurt and anger sometimes go hand in hand. The anger that is often shown outwardly might have the emotion of hurt lying behind, right? So, angry hurt is also something that we call. Yamansi is mentioning hurt that others are not caring or understanding. Exactly. Coming to why do we feel hurt? Like Gavi pointed out that there are expectations that are unmet, and you feel not so great about it. You feel that others are not caring or understanding your situation. Right? Sometimes you feel hurt because you feel betrayed by your friends. Maybe you promised something to like somebody promised you something and they didn't probably deliver on it. Okay, we'll meet on a particular coffee date, and probably you got stood up. That's betrayal. You're gonna feel hurt. Others treating us badly, disrespect, or you know thinking that you don't deserve this sort of treatment, this deservingness, this unfairness, as we call them, themes also exist within her. We have a few other comments as well. I think anger is second stage of hurt in this scenario. Yes, exactly, they go hand in hand. See, for some individuals the hurt comes in before the anger, or sometimes hurt is also a coping mechanism that is used to get over hurt. Or it can be the other way around as well, where people are feeling hurt but it's coming out as anger. Conditional expectation, exactly. Somebody devaluing your relationship is also something that comes first when we're talking about hurt. Also, feel free to add any other themes even when we are talking going further ahead. I would still definitely like to hear what you have to say, the situations that you from your personal experience think you have gotten hurt from, right? So please, I am loving the responses that we are getting. Please keep adding. So we discussed about themes that come with hurt. So there's expectations being unmet, unfairness, I don't deserve to be treated like this, betrayal is there, undeservingness, unfair treatment, right? Now, one thing that is coming to my mind actually when we are talking about this is that hurt is also thought of as a weakness. It's vulnerability in a sense, and a lot of times we are scared to show that vulnerability, and we choose to hide it. Now, I would like to emphasize that being hurt does not mean that you're weak. It is very natural, it is very human. I'm sure that everybody viewing this now or later have felt hurt at some point in their lives, right? So, I would definitely, like, one misconception that comes with hurt is that it's a sign of weakness. And being vulnerable is a sign of weakness, which is not true. Along with hiding, there's another thing that an interesting fact that I think emphasizes how we carry hurt with us. Not only we choose to hide the hurt, we also choose to carry it with us. I read this a few years ago. I don't know how true that is, but this is about physiology in the sense. It is said that the cells in our body regenerate and die, and they revive like time and again, and it's a continuous process. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that few years down the line, you will probably have all the cells in your body renewed, except for the brain cells, which continue to hold on to that hurt, that carry that hurt with us. Don't you agree? So many times, we are still hurt about something that has happened to us ages ago, or and we still find it extremely hard to get over, to deal with, right? Yes, Manisha ma'am also mentioned belief system. Yes, very true. How we think about it is one of the key factors about getting hurt, which is what we are coming to next. Why do we feel this feeling of hurt? What do you think? Why do we feel this hurt? We explored so far about the situations that we get hurt in, so to say, the themes that we get hurt in. Why do you think we feel this emotion of hurt? Where do you think this emotion of hurt comes from? I'll wait for 2 seconds, and then we can go ahead. When someone you love moves away, exactly. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, it hurts. It's also sometimes sadness that you feel. Maybe what you're describing right now might be sadness, right? So another example of how all humans experience hurt, experience sadness, all these negative emotions in a much different way, when expectations aren't fulfilled. Exactly. Now now all of these situations, definitely. Now let's move to, why do we feel that we are hurt? Now, this is going to sound very demeaning or probably very blunt. So brace yourself before I say that. But hurt starts from the point of your perception of the event. Now, what I mean to say is that two people who are viewing a similar situation or the same situation might feel very differently, right? And why do you feel differently? Because your perspective of that particular emotion is of that particular situation is different, right? So I'll repeat my point. Two people who are viewing the same situation might have very different perspectives about the same situation, and depending on what their perspective is how they'll end up feeling about it, right? um Amygdala, exactly. These emotions, or this fear, or these negative emotions or emotions in general, come from amygdala physiologically. Yes, definitely, right? Moving on. Why do I say this? And it sounds very blunt, where you're like, it might feel that I'm putting it on you, that you're feeling hurt about something. Wait, hold back, listen to what I have to say, and then we'll move ahead. Does anybody remember this dialogue from Lust Stories, by Radhika Apte? I think I don't. I have not seen Lust Stories, but there's this one dialogue that she has, and I saw it on reels, and it made so much sense. Putting it here, her character mentions that you only hurt the people you love. I mean, not intentionally. You don't mean to hurt them, but you will only end up being hurt from the people that you love, which I agree with. Let me elaborate. Now, try to think about it from a perspective like this. If I am not a close friend to you, and I have an opinion on your situation, or how you are as a person, how do you think you would feel about it? I'm guessing that you wouldn't care much about it, right? Because I'm a stranger, and yes, exactly. Triggered. And yes. Okay. Let me start the situation over again, because I think I messed up there. What I mean to say is that if I'm a close friend to you, I'm a best friend, I am the closest person on this planet to you, and I have a comment on something that you have said, right? I've said about your situation, or about you as a person, that would definitely mean something, right? You would probably get very hurt about it, because we'll have statements like, oh, how could she make a statement like that? How could she speak to me like that? And who is she to make a comment like that, etc., etc. You might feel very triggered, you might feel very hurt about it, as opposed to a complete stranger, right? For example, if I am making that comment for you, who is a complete stranger to you, would you really care? Would you really think too much about somebody making a comment on yourself, on you or your situation, if that person was not close to you? No, right? Now think about it. These are two people making probably similar comments on your situation, but you feel differently. Why do you think that happens? Because you hold this individual's opinion at a particular position, and you value it. You hold it at a spot where you're going to consider it in the future, if this particular comment that they've made makes a lot of sense, right? So that's why I say that, um, you know the you are responsible for how you feel about that situation. It sounds very blunt, but there is a positive side to it. Let me come to you. Now, I am not saying that you are in no way responsible. You are not. Hi, I think it shaked a little bit. Am I back? Could somebody please let me know? I paused for myself. Could somebody please let me know in the comments if you are still able to hear me? I don't think you can hear me. Oh, okay, okay. Sorry. Okay, I just paused for myself. Thank you so much for letting me know. Okay, I continue. Okay, now we are coming to the point where I was talking about how it might seem a little blunt to say that the hurt starts from your perception, but it also has a positive side to it. Wait back, I'm going to elaborate on this. Now, having said the above things about your perspective mattering more in your role of getting hurt, there's something else that I also want to talk about and emphasize and highlight here. um, Having said that, it doesn't justify anybody's wrongdoing or ill treatment towards you. This does not in any way apply to somebody going through abuse or is in a toxic home environment. It doesn't justify that treatment, and this doesn't apply to those situations. And from there, I would want to shift you to the positive sides of it. The positive side of thinking that it starts from your perspective is that the ball always remains in your court. You are responsible for how you feel, and in any situation um, or any towards any person, you can choose how you want to feel about it. Probably if you want to feel a particular way that you're not particularly affected too much, where it's impairing you, exactly, that is the place that we are going at. The ball is in your court. You choose how you feel about a particular situation, right? Try and understand here, the place that we're trying to go from here is not to feel indifferent or happy about a situation which is clearly not desirable, but rather to feel hurt in a manner which is not very impairing in the sense that it is not adversely affecting you too much. You still continue to feel that hurt. You still continue to undergo that discomforting feeling, but not to an intensity where it's paralyzing you from functioning in your everyday life. Does this make sense so far? Any doubts that you have so far? And then we'll go to the coping and the unhealthy coping as well as the healthy coping. Any doubts that we have so far? So far, we have discussed about the aspects that we are going to be talking about. We focused on how this is not, again, I would like to emphasize, this webinar is not a replacement for therapy. In case you're going to see your mental health concerns, we would recommend you to consult recom- uh, consultation from a mental health professional. We also spoke about how hurt is very normal, very natural, as it's a part of being human, and how the negative emotions in our life can also have a lot of benefits for us, benefits in the sense that they are helping us, right? Then we began talking about the synonyms for hurt that we have, how hurt usually manifests in our life. We spoke about angry hurt. We also spoke about sometimes how the anger that you're feeling might have the emotion of hurt behind it, or vice versa. We spoke about situations where you tend to get hurt, so to say, the themes for the feeling of hurt. We spoke about how hurt is also sometimes considered a sign of weakness, where you might, it is a sign, it is a place where you're very vulnerable, and oftentimes it is regarded as something that is a weakness, and often we choose to hide it. Well, I want to mention that being hurt about any situation is not weakness. I'm sure all of us have felt that at some point or the other. Another point that I emphasized was about how, along with choosing to hide it, we also sometimes carry it with us for years and years, and it becoming grudge and sulking about it, etc., etc. Last important point that we spoke about was how hurt starts from your perception. And the positive aspect of that is, even though it stems from your perception, it also means that you are responsible for how you feel, and the ball is always in your court. So you choose how you want to feel in a particular situation. It's not a place where you are moving towards indifferent or aiming to feel a positive emotion. Rather, we are moving towards choosing to feel the uncomfortable feeling, but not in the way that it's impairing you. Yes, this session is going to be available, Chetna ma'am. The session is going to be available on YouTube, so you will be able to access it any other time as well. Thank you so much. Now moving to, I'm assuming that there are no doubts from it, and I'll just skip right ahead to the unhealthy ways that we often choose to cope. Now, this is going to be relatable to a lot of us, not only you, but me as well. Me being a therapist doesn't make me immune to the unhealthy ways that we often choose to cope. How to change the perception in that situation? Yes, we will come to a few strategies about that in the healthy coping section. Right now, we're talking about how we choose to cope unhealthily with it. Now, lot of times, and I'm guilty of this as well, whenever we choose to when we are hurt about any situation, our go-to response is probably to cut that person off from our lives, right? Or we choose to close and not talk much about ourselves with the people who have probably hurt us in the past, right? Now, again, I want to emphasize this does not apply to individuals in an abusive relationship or an abusive or a toxic household. This doesn't apply to them. But coming back to the point, it can backfire, right? Whenever we are talking about cutting off people from our lives, it can backfire. It sometimes mean that we are cutting off toxic people from our lives, but it's not a very healthy way to cope with it. Now, why do I say that? Because people, we're social animals one way or the other. No matter what happens, people still continue to be an important part of our well-being and or are often fuel to our energy in on everyday life. For me personally, people are a very important part of my life. At the end of the day, if I'm meeting new people, it only enhances, it only, makes my day better. So that's why it might not be a very helpful strategy. Other ways that we choose to cope with hurt might be to procrastinate, living in the past, dwelling on it, overthinking, thinking about why it happened, how you could have acted differently, how the other person could have acted differently, oversleeping, sometimes overworking to drown all the hurt or the uncomfortable feeling, or sometimes also going to think about it in the positive sense, right? Sometimes toxic positivity, as it's called, can also be a very unhealthy way of coping with it. One very common way that I see in my clients as well as around me is how people sometimes choose to suppress that hurt because it's such an uncomfortable feeling. We choose to not talk about it, we choose to ignore it, suppress it, right? Now, these emotions I know are extremely overwhelming to face, but they're often avoided. And when they're avoided, these emotions continue to build. They keep building underneath the surface. And at one point, they just blast open. So, venting them from time to time is something that you can consider as a healthy option. Sulking in a way can also be considered rumination, where we're dwelling on the particular thing, and it is said that sometimes there are studies now which emphasize that catharsis always doesn't help. Venting out about a situation might not always be the best strategy because it keeps rewinding in your head, it rewires your brain again to think in particular ways. So sulking is again another unhealthy coping mechanism. Sometimes we choose to be in complete denial about the situation and often lean into substances, alcohol, drugs, etc., to drown how we are feeling in the moment. Now, as we've mentioned, it's an extremely uncomfortable feeling that we are going through. And instead of choosing to deal with it actively, we choose to be in denial and rely on all of these things. Now, think back to the times, I just got reminded of something that happens often. There are a lot of memes also on this, so tell me in the comments if you relate to this. Sometimes when people ask you how you're doing, you often say, I am fine. When instead of, when this happens, when you're hurt as well, you tend to say that, oh, I'm fine, when in reality, you're not doing that fine, right? This is the aspect that highlights that you choose to hide it a lot of times and let it build under the surface, right? Um, Another very common strategy, and I'm extremely guilty of this, is where you let yourself indulge in things, right? You binge on literally anything. It might be a TV series, it might be food. You choose to drown it by binging on something. That, like, does it not happen to you that sometimes choose to, just order a large pizza or like, a tub of ice cream just because you're not doing fine? It has happened to a lot of us, and I'm sure it is a part of the process, right? But there's a very thin balance here, right? When it goes from being self-care to overindulgence. Okay. So this is an important point. Like, what point does it start being unhealthy, right? It's another way that we choose to unhealthily cope with the hurt. Last but not the least, we choose to let go of any sort of schedule that we have going on. Skipping school, skipping college, skipping work, putting a leave, or if we had some sort of system for our self-care, working out, meditation, everything, we chose to let go of everything as well. For some time it makes sense to give yourself a rest, But again, there is a very thin line here where it goes from letting yourself be to it being, letting go of um, all healthy ways of coping, right? Now, of course, now tell me in the comments, what do you think? Which unhealthy strategy do you relate to? There's absolutely no shame in admitting it. I'm admitting it myself. I don't think I have tried all of this at some point or the other. These are very uncomfortable emotions, and no matter how much you know it here, sometimes it just doesn't work out where you're able to indulge in the healthy ways, right? Yes, Sheetal ma'am, I'm sure. I don't know what you said yes for, but I am being in denial most of the times. Exactly. It's difficult to deal with, so it's extremely understandable. I would also like take this stage to just normalize unhealthy coping as well. Eating at night time, exactly. Binging on food, very common. Just I would like to take this platform to normalize that all of us do engage in unhealthy coping mechanisms at times, and it's natural, it's human. Sometimes maybe we are not aware of what the healthy way to cope in this situation might be, or sometimes even if it makes a lot of sense to cope the healthy way, it's just too much effort, and it's very understandable. Any other points that you would like to emphasize about unhealthy coping before we go ahead? Let's drink some water. All right. It might also happen that while we are discussing the healthy ways, some unhealthy coping mechanisms might come to your head. So please feel free to add them as and on you think about them. Watching movies on Amazon, exactly, binge watching. I do that too a lot of times. Yes. Exactly. So now let's move to the healthy ways that you could choose to cope. Nikhil, sir, I think this will answer your question about the perception shift. Precisely. Managing hurt, first step, I think, would involve addressing and acknowledging the emotion. Right. So many times, denial, when we are in the denial of that emotion, unless we don't point out what the problem is exactly, we continue to, be lost about what exactly is it about, right? So acknowledging and accepting that it is okay, to validating your own emotions, that it's completely fine for me to feel like this in this particular situation. It's valid, it is normal, and I'm allowed to feel this way. Just saying this to yourself can sometimes be very reassuring. So recognize that you're experiencing hurt. Here it means avoiding suppressing or denying your emotions, rather allowing yourself to feel it. It is one of the strategies that we discuss in ACT. Enduring that particular emotion, being with that emotion, feeling it completely and acknowledging them. So the first step starts with acknowledging and accepting your feelings, right? Moving forward, I would also like to emphasize realistic expectations. A lot of times, just think back to some of the situations in which you might have been hurt, and just thinking that, was my expectation from this particular person realistic at that particular point in time? We talk about this concept called as demandingness in therapy, which means that preferences, there are two levels of wanting something. One is where you're wishing and wanting for something, as opposed to demanding something. And oftentimes when we go to demanding, we make rules out of it. Some very simple things as well, such as, okay, I expect that my friend should be kind to me. Now there's no rule in the world that she should be kind to me. Of course, I want and I wish for her to be kind to me, but doesn't mean that she'll necessarily be kind, right? So holding realistic expectations, right? If in that particular, now think back to another scenario as well, where probably you asked your friend to come up, with some sort of assignment for you, but maybe she was not well, maybe she was not in the position to complete because her work was left. Now, was that a realistic expectation? Just analyzing for yourself where these realistic expectations lie for you, right? Now, this perception shift is what I elaborated in the demandingness as well as preference. It's a very deep concept, and it's not possible to cover it in a 45-minute live, but I tried my best. In case you have any questions, please feel free to add it here, right? Another very important tool that you can use to deal with it is to shift your attitude, right? What you're thinking about that situation, how you're thinking about it. It's a filter, so you could use that filter and choose to protect yourself from that hurt, right? Now, like I said, the perception is what where the hurt comes from. You can still choose to say that, okay, I wish that she wouldn't have reacted or spoken to me in a particular manner, right? But I can't, like, how much can you control an individual's behaviors and emotions, right? So there, the tool for perception shift, or that tool for the filter about how to protect yourself comes in. So far I've spoken about 3 points. One was about acknowledging and accepting. Next was about your attitude or your belief about that particular situation being the key tool to how you can protect yourself from that hurt, right? And and third point, I also spoke about demandingness and demandingness to preferences. Now, it's a very deep concept. I can completely understand if you're not able to understand it right now, but let's go ahead. Giving yourself that time. Now, this emotion of hurt, we've emphasized over and over again in this webinar that it's a difficult emotion to deal with. It's not possible for you to deal with it in a night or in a fortnight, even. So, just understanding the fact that healing from that particular situation takes time. A healthy way to cope would also to not rush yourself from the process and just be there for yourself, be patient with yourself, and give yourself that compassion, right? If you were physically hurt at any point in time, you wouldn't rush yourself to run a marathon, right? You would give yourself that rest, you would give yourself that time to heal. Same goes for your emotional hurt as well. Giving yourself that time to heal from it, to move past it, okay? And rushing through it is just going to turn counterproductive, right? So giving yourself that time. Next would be expressing your feelings. A lot of times we choose not to communicate about what we are feeling hurt with, hurt about, hurt with, right? So talk to someone that you trust your feelings with. It's not important that you talk to that one person immediately, the person who is connected or associated with that situation. You don't have to go and talk to that one person about how you're feeling. You can talk to someone that you trust with your feelings, and it could be a friend, a family member. It could also be your own your therapist, right? Now, expressing your emotions can be cathartic, and it provides you a different perspective. So many times it happens to me also that I'm talking to a friend of mine, and while talking I just have like some sort of epiphany in that moment, or some sort of the batti jalna bolte hain na apan, the light just like clicks. You just understand another perspective, you just understand another perspective, situation, right? It might come from yourself, from within, or from your friend. So expressing and talking about how you're feeling is also a very healthy way, right? Take time to disconnect. A lot of our reactions when it comes to hurt is in the form of outbursts. It happens to me where I'm hurt about something, but my outbursts are probably at my mother or probably at my father, which is very unhealthy because they had nothing to do with it. And it's not a healthy way of communicating either. So take time to disconnect, is what I would say. A lot of times the hurt can come in the form of outbursts, taunts also sometimes. So distance yourself from that situation for some time. Recognize that I am in this particular situation and this is how my behaviors are coming out as. Take time to disconnect. It's fine. Go away from that situation. And later, when you're in a space to communicate it assertively, cool down first. But don't rush that process of cool down also. So communicate assertively once you've calmed down about what exactly you were hurt about to that person or to whomever your taunts or outbursts are coming out to, right? So we have acknowledged your feelings, we have giving yourself some time to heal through it, expressing your feelings in a manner which is assertively communicated, taking time to disconnect, taking time to remove yourself out of that situation, thinking about it, then coming back. Lastly, we're coming to the last few strategies. We have journaling. writing down has proven to be one of the best means to understand what you're thinking about that situation, how you're feeling. A lot of times we are not aware of how we are feeling, right? A lot of times we don't know what we are hurt about. Is it the person? Is it the situation? Is it something else that got triggered and this was the result? We don't know, we're not aware of it. So it always helps to journal your emotions, your thoughts, and it can give you a lot of clarity where about what exactly your hurt is about. And it also helps you to recognize it'll also help you from from sorry, I'll just repeat this point. Sorry. Journaling, so writing down about your thoughts and emotions will give you a lot of clarity about who has hurt you, what has happened because of which you are hurt, etc., etc. And also to prevent from you generalizing, right? She always does this, she's never there for me. And your framing will change in a lot of ways. You will prevent from generalizing and talk specifically about that situation, specifically about that person, right? So journaling helps tremendously. It helps me personally as well. Next point is, of course, intertwined with the point before, where you avoid generalizing. You avoid using the words always or never. And then experiencing the emotion of hurt, we tend to look at it as a never-ending cycle. कि हमेशा मेरे साथ होता है. For people who don't understand Hindi, this always happens to me, right? And we keep dwelling on it, which can turn to the unhealthy side of it. That's why avoid generalizing any situations, avoid using the words always and never, right? And choose to journal. Going forward, practicing self compassion, right? We spoke about this point some time ago. If you were physically hurt, what would you do in such a situation? You would choose to give yourself some rest, right? You will take medications, you will rest, probably relax yourself in some form or the other. So practice self compassion. Last few points, but very important ones. Set boundaries, right? If hurt is a result of somebody's actions, consider setting those boundaries, right? No matter how much you try to protect yourself from it, sometimes it's just external. So choose to set those boundaries, choose to probably, clearly communicate about how this particular situation has hurt you, how it was not okay. And in this situation, definitely prioritize your well-being, right? um Last but not the least, focus on what you can control. We put a lot of pressure on things about, this could happen or that could happen. It is important to see in that particular situation what was in your control, what could you control. Is it somebody else's behaviors? Then you probably did not have any control over it, but your outburst, you definitely had a lot of control over it. So choose to look or focus on things that you have under your control. um, Lastly, seek professional help. If you're finding it very challenging to manage this situation of hurt for you and you're feeling extreme distress, therapy can provide you great guidelines, great roads to heal yourself or understand this hurt as well, if you're unable to do it yourself. And absolutely, there's no shame in there's no shame in admitting that it can be hurt can be difficult to manage. There's absolutely no shame in admitting that. I think that's about it from my end about a few healthy unhealthy coping mechanisms that we use in hurt. I hope that you have made a note of the healthy aspects, and if you have any doubts, please feel free to add it to the comments, or in case you are watching this at a later point and want us to address a few questions, please feel free to email us on the following email ID. I'm adding the email ID to the comments. Make note of it. If you have any questions on that aspect on this webinar, you could definitely email them to us and we will be happy to answer. Now over to any questions that you have regarding the work that I presented so far. Of course, one thing that's coming to mind right now is hurt is a very extensive idea to deal with. And of course, I tried my best to present it in a form which can help you understand better. But there is a lot that was not addressed today, like pertaining to the time restriction as well as the content. So yeah, so you can have questions based on that as well. We'll be happy to answer them as well. You just wait for 2 minutes, and if you don't have any questions, then I would definitely move to wrapping the session now. Oh yeah, sorry, I missed a few strategies there. Manisha ma'am had mentioned that, forgive and look what my role in that case is. Exactly. Very important, very healthy way of choosing to cope. Definitely. All right, I think I will move to wrapping up the session. Can you please summarize healthy coping? Right, okay. Healthy coping would look, actually, it's a very vast thing, but I'll try my best to explain it. Healthy coping would look that ultimately, in the long term, it doesn't impact you or harm you too much. For example, eating that tub of ice cream for that moment, or avoiding that particular emotion in the moment, it feels good, right? It gives you benefits in the present moment, right? But later it's harmful, right? The emotion of hurt or any unpleasant emotion for that matter will keep building underneath. So ultimately it'll come and harm you only. Whereas when you're talking about healthy coping, in the moment they might be very difficult to understand, even do, but long term may it has a lot of benefits for you. It helps you to cope it in a healthier manner, where it doesn't come and come and harm you again in the future. So healthy and unhealthy, that's the difference between the two. Thank you so much, Cheta ma'am, for attending the session. um, all right, any other questions? I'll be happy to answer them. All right. Okay. So now on to wrapping up of the session. Firstly, I would start by thanking Asira ma'am for making this platform available for me to express my ideas so seamlessly, endlessly. Thank you so much for this. Thank you so much to everybody who attended the session. We had a large number of people who had joined in, and I'm sure that there'll be people watching this later as well. So thank you so much for giving your time and watching until the end. I'm extremely glad that you took out time to do this. Um, Thank you so much, Aditi. All right. We have a few very interesting upcoming events at Atha. I would like to take 2 moments to explain that. Firstly, we have a free upcoming webinar on orientation to IP. Now, Indian psychology is very vast. It basically comes from a space of exploring ancient wisdom and combining that with modern psychotherapy. So we have an orientation. If somebody who is interested to explore Indian psychology, this is the webinar for you. It's happening on the 4th of December. Followed by that, we have a session which is on orientation to IP. It's an extensive webinar. It's a 6-hour webinar happening on the 14th, 18th, as well as 21st of this month. I can't believe we're already in the last month, but we had a few very jam-packed events. But orientation to IP is happening on the 14th, 18th, as well as 21st of December. We are starting with another interesting batch of CBT exclusive workshops. We are exploring CBT with adult ADHD. We're exploring CBT with anxiety. We're having a few case demonstrations, practice sessions, etc., etc. For any of the details for the above sessions, please feel free to reach out to the email ID that I have mentioned, or follow us on Instagram on Atha Psychotherapy. You will find all of the details there. In case you're still not able to find it, you can DM us. We can explain you the process for registration, and you can join in for these seminars or workshops or trainings. Thank you so much. And yeah, I think thank you so much for attending, and I would like to wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time, and please feel free to reach out to us anytime, and we'll be happy to help for any other concern that you might have. Thank you so much. Bye bye.